Welcome back, learning community. We're going to sit at the feet of Jesus again in this teaching in order to look again at rhythm. So Zach introduced the idea, the broader concept of a run-rest rhythm of life. If we look at Jesus' life, he lived out a healthy rhythm that allowed him to have proper connection with the Father and proper connection with others. Now, Jesus, the Bible tells us that Jesus is the author of all life. He's the sustainer and creator of all things. So we believe the reason why we're hunkering down twice in this rhythm discussion is because we believe that if we follow in the way of Jesus and get into step with the beats of his rhythm, that we will actually be tapping into the source of all life. And so then when we do that, we'll have more freedom, more joy, more peace, that these things will be the fruit of a proper and healthy rhythm of life. And when we don't have these things, we'll have fear, anxiety, busyness, which I call the curse word of our culture, the B word. We're always busy. We're so busy that we don't have time to enjoy life itself. And so that's why we're hunkering down in rhythms. And we're going to look at this in this teaching at the 4 specific rhythms that we saw Jesus do over and over and over again. And a quick note, these rhythms were played out in all the relational spaces that we saw in Jesus' life. Remember, we talked about the public space, the social space, the personal and the intimate, that Jesus aligned his relationships with the crowds, the disciples, the 12, and the 3. That's how he ordered his relationships in his life, and we see all of these beats and these rhythms playing out in each one of those relational spaces. But it's up for you to explore what that means and how they're incorporated into the different relationships that you build as disciples, okay, as disciples and disciple makers. All right, so here we go. We're going to go really fast because each one of these could be a deep, in-depth teaching that on their own. So we're just going to give like a cursory flyby of these 4 beats, these 4 rhythms of Jesus' life. So the first one is among. Jesus went out among the people constantly. We see this. Immediately he went to the other side of the sea. Immediately he went to the next city. He crossed over to the next area. We see this in the life of Zacchaeus. The reason why he had that interaction with Zacchaeus is because he was going through Jericho. With the woman at the well, it was because he was going among the Samaritans in Samaria, a place where, ironically, he should have never been as an observant religious Jew. So Jesus was not afraid to go among the people. In our culture, Christians, we have to almost live out the exact opposite mentality. We expect people to have their religious experiences from 9 to 10 or 11 to noon on Sunday mornings in our church buildings. That's what we invite people into. Jesus instead was the invitation because he went out among the people. That is where the deepest, most profound life transformations happened in the stories of Jesus' life, like Zacchaeus or the woman at the well. It's because he didn't expect them to come into his rhythm of his life. How he ordered his life is that he went out among the people to be where they were and are. Second one, alongside. This is going to be a little quicker because this is more just kind of following up on the high invitation, high challenge conversation. You can go back and watch that teaching. But there was a point where Jesus brought people alongside him so that they could observe, model, and then try themselves what it meant to follow in the way of God, to follow him as he followed the Father. He brought them alongside. In our culture, this might be better understood as like modeling or apprenticeship or mentoring, I mean. It's that mentality that you're bringing someone alongside to observe you, and then they will go and do the activities themselves, and then you'll bring them back and you'll discuss it and talk with them about it. We're very bad about this in our culture, especially when it comes to faith. Our mentality is you keep whatever you choose to believe, that's okay for you. Just don't bring it and let it impose anything on my life, right? So we're not very comfortable bringing people alongside of us in our faith journey because we're told that we can't and shouldn't. But this is the exact opposite of what Jesus did. He invited them into all of his life, brought them alongside so that they could observe and then feel comfortable going about learning what it means to follow Jesus. And we need to allow ourselves time to bring people alongside. Jesus went with the disciples. Jesus Christ himself went with the disciples for 3 years. He brought them alongside for 3 years to develop them and train them and equip them and let them watch him. So this alongside is very, very important. You need to be inviting people alongside you as you follow Christ, but also you need to be stepping out and seeing that people that you admire or you like the way, or you see the way that they're following Jesus and be like, man, I want that. You need to say, hey, can I come alongside of you? You can be proactive in that. That's okay to do. And then away. There was this repeated pattern of Jesus' life, the rhythm, where he would then go away. He would go to desolate and lonely places to pray. He would go away to fast. He would go to the mountainside to spend time with the Father. These were times where he would get away from people to the crush of the demands of day-to-day life, and he would spend time with the Father, and he would be filled up and energized himself. This idea of solitude and rest and disconnecting, unplugging, is very, very foreign for us in our day and time. In fact, it almost feels weird when you do it. I did it for a whole day, and it felt like I was detoxing from the connectedness, constant stimuli coming at me. It's very difficult for us and counterculture for us to do, but we see it in the life of Jesus. He went away. But there's another important thing of this that we have to note is it was at the times of Jesus's most, what we would say his highest popularity is when he would model going away. And this is a very important lesson for us to learn as we're following Jesus, because we would say almost the exact opposite. When Jesus was feeding the 5,000 and everyone was like so amazed and wanting to follow him, that's when we would say, hey, leverage that for kingdom impact. Leverage that for more authority and power, even in the name of God. Or like in the triumphal entry, when people were putting down palm branches or robes, they were wanting to declare him king. That's when we would say, leverage that for the good. Leverage that for the kingdom of God. Well, what Jesus modeled in both of those instances is he would go away. When he, after feeding the 5,000, he went on retreat alone. When he, after the triumphal entry, he went to the upper room. He went away in a special time with his closest disciples. What he is doing is saying, it's not about me. It's not about, look at this charismatic leader. It's about, he went away so that people could see that it's the Father. It was just another way of Jesus pointing ultimately to the Father. And then finally, certainly not least, around. And what we mean by this is around the table, but also around just hanging around. And we're going to talk about both of those. The first one is just around the table. We see repeated in the life of Jesus over and over again is this idea that he just sat around and reclined at the table with people. He was at parties. His first miracle was at a wedding feast. He was just loved being around the table. There's something that happens intimately with people around food, sharing meal with them. It's hard to have an enemy when you're breaking bread with people and eating with them. There's just something organic. People open up more. You feel a bond with people after you've shared a meal with them. Jesus incorporated that rhythm into his life. But there's a larger principle as well. In their culture, there wasn't TV and movies and all this home game systems and all these things. And so when they had around the table, they would then kick back. And first of all, it wasn't 6 people around a table. It was probably like 20. It was extended family. We're talking 20, 30, 50, 60 people. These were parties. But they would then kick back and recline at the table and spend hours of unprogrammed time just sharing stories, talking, teaching, all this stuff. So what the larger principle is just a time to have unprogrammed time of relaxation and hanging out with people. Oftentimes we don't do that anymore, especially in our faith communities. We always got to get to the next task or next accomplishment or next goal. So I know that was really fast, but those are the 4 rhythms that we see in Jesus' life. He would go out among the people, but then he brought people alongside of him to observe. He would go away on retreat, but then he would have unprogrammed time around people. And then he would go out among. And this fancy hourglass here is how Jesus spent his time. These were the rhythms of his life. And we believe that as we follow in the way of Jesus, he will fill you up. If we incorporate these rhythms into our life, that we will have more joy, more contentment, more freedom, and that we will be connecting to the source of all life as we follow in the way of Jesus.